Welcome to Brainstoryum. I'm Anna Tizard, award-winning dreampunk and deeply weird fantasy author, and yes, that's me and my fiction that's deeply weird. Explore and imagine with me the most unexpected story ideas using the surrealist word game of Exquisite Corpse. Find out more and join in at annatizard.com. This is a storytelling challenge unlike anything you've tried before. Hello, imaginative people. I'm Anna Tizard, and this is episode 62 of Brainstoryum. Well, I hope you're ready for some thought-provoking story brainstorms, because today's Exquisite Corpse games will lead us down various alleyways of thought about the process of creative writing, in particular, knowing yourself as a writer, acknowledging what it is that sparks off your imagination and what doesn't, so you can bypass potential blocks, and the balance between exploring pre-existing associations that you have with words and ideas and just letting go and diving straight in. That's all to come in the strange labyrinth that is story brainstorming with Exquisite Corpse. But first, I have some feedback from listeners on a writing prompt that I shared last time. So let's get into that first. Now, the writing prompt I'd suggested at the end of the last show was the ethereal rune. Moments in Time and Space, host of a podcast of chilling microfiction, said, "The etching was now just a memory lost in time. Its faded lines etched into the cave wall were easy to miss in the dim light of the lanterns of the explorers. They were far too eager to reach the darker depths of the cavern, curious to see what they would find." Aha! Now, the words "far too eager" tell me that these explorers are about to find out much more than they bargained for. What's in the cavern? Monsters? A dragon? And here, interestingly, the runes go unnoticed, even though they were the subject of the writing prompt. I really like this kind of thinking outside the box. And this strikes me as one of those, the beginning of one of those stories where the narrator, and therefore the readers, know just a little bit more than the characters do in the story. But even as I'm cringing at what they're so naively walking into, I want to know what it is. What is this hidden danger, and how many of the people survive? Thank you for your idea, Moments in Time and Space. Sheila E. Young, Canadian action-adventure author, wrote this mini-scene. "Wait a minute, I meant to roll the Yahtzee dice." She picked up the ethereal rune, watching the beams of light transform into a figure. "I take it back. I didn't mean it. Conjure yourself back to wherever you came from." The figure smiled. "No, take me to New York City again." I have vague memories of playing Yahtzee as a child, but I do not remember that happening. This is a fun idea. Is this a kind of genie that comes out of the rune? And it's clear that this isn't the first time. She says, "Take me to New York City again." So either this has happened to her it's happened to her before on her own, or perhaps the protagonist is familiar with this being and it's happened to her before. This being has appeared to her before. Funnily enough, it struck me that this is the opposite approach to the first story idea, in that the character in the story clearly knows a lot more than we do, if this is the case, if this has happened before. And we as readers need to catch up. But equally, that's also a great place to dive into a story part way through. You can quite quickly fill in the reader with hints and references to what's happened before, and that way the story skips straight ahead to a juicy bit. You don't necessarily need to start at the beginning of their journey if that doesn't strike you as the most intriguing part to start with. You can start later. Well, thank you for your idea, Sheila E. Young. Nick Vrakar, urban and contemporary fantasy author, said, "A word etched in stone nears permanence. A symbol scrawled on paper remains tangible, but a rune written in the stars is a fleeting, ethereal thing." She was never known for her patience as she set about the alignment of planets and composed a symphony in blood and starlight. Ooh, that is evocative. A symphony in blood and starlight. Beautiful. It kind of resonates. And the flavour of this piece compares permanence with things that are fleeting or intangible, difficult to grasp hold of. I like these themes because they're fundamental to our experiences. We often walk around with this illusion of permanence when, in seeing the bigger picture, they may actually be fleeting. And here we have a goddess at work, aligning the planets. If anyone can see the bigger picture, it's her. Thank you for sharing your idea, Nick. Jan Miklazevich, who writes poems and short stories, said, "Ethereal rune, harbinger of doom, hovers over you in a photograph, and the next few days will be your last, unless..." A lot packed into a short space there. An omen in a photograph, marking out the doomed, unless what? So there is a way out of this if whoever's in that photo can find a way or get some kind of help. And with the rhythms and the assonance, the similar sounds repeated in rune, doom, photograph and last, this feels like a poem or maybe even a chant. I want to know who says these things. A soothsayer? A rune caster? A person with magical powers, maybe. I like it. There's a lot you could pull out of this and develop. Thank you, Jan Miklazevich. If we have no rune stones, then may words be our stepping stones into new realms of story. Let the magic begin. Bring forth the socks of destiny. That's right. And for those who haven't listened before or played before, Exquisite Corpse mixes random words and phrases from you, the listeners, into a sentence that goes describing word noun, action, describing word noun. And then we try and make sense of it. So I'm reaching into the describing word sock. And the first word is from Alessandro Bozzo. Intrepid. So we have someone or something that is fearless, adventurous. Let's throw that next to a noun. This is from Sean, also known as Blue Wizard Facts. Ferryman. What's going on here then? So let's try for an action. This is from Anonymous. Expelled. I mean, immediately I think of being expelled at school, but it doesn't have to mean that, though. It could mean something sort of thrust out of something else, but expelled from a ferryman? Right, let's just keep going. Let's not get too deep ahead of ourselves. So this is another describing word from Mariah. Long. Okay. Long in time or physically long or seeming long. final word is from Paul Thomas. Lobby. Oh, that's weird. Okay. What have we got together? All as one sentence. We have the intrepid ferryman expelled the long lobby. So an adventurous or fearless ferryman. Could that be the ferryman who ferries the newly dead across the river to the other side? He expels a lobby. See, thinking about the word lobby on its own, you could say it was a group of people who are lobbying legislators about a particular law or whatever it is. People who are trying to influence politics. For them all to end up on the ferryman's boat all at once, if we are talking about the ferryman, someone or something has killed off the entire group all at once. A bomb? Some other catastrophe? Someone who disagreed with their political ideas and influence a lot. And the ferryman expels them. That's a slightly weird way to put it, but it sort of works as he's delivering them out of this world and into the next. I mean, this could be the basis for some kind of paranormal political thriller. Seems a strange combination, except we have the intrepid ferryman expelled the long lobby, which makes it seem to me like the lobby must be the physical place, a room or a hall, maybe a front reception area that leads to other rooms or corridors where rooms come off. Oh, a reception area could mean the Hotel of the Dead? Why would there be a Hotel of the Dead? Could this be a waiting area? A kind of limbo if heaven and hell are getting full? The intrepid ferryman expelled the long lobby. I have to admit, it gives me a bizarre image in my head, as if this cloaked figure, gnarled fingers wrapped around his staff, which he uses to push off the riverbank once the newly dead have clambered onto his boat. He says something, mutters a few words under his breath, and an image projects from his mouth, or his head, I'm not quite sure. That's what the word expel does for me here. He's expelling an image from his mind into the air so that other people can see it. Maybe, once the dead are on his boat, he has access to their thoughts as they sit and tremble on the wooden seats along the edge. For the ferryman doesn't have a life in the usual sense, so he borrows the thoughts and ideas of those who have just died, and then, to distract them, for they tend to be panicky, frightened when they arrive, he projects the image, the one image he finds amongst their thoughts that seems the calmest, into the cloudy twilight. An image that plays out like a TV screen hovering in the sky. The one whose mind it came from, a straggly-haired man with a short beard, gasps when he sees it, his eyes wild. The others all watch, gloomy, teeth chattering, but distracted nonetheless. The river is black as the boat nuzzles the low-bobbing waves. The ferryman dips his staff into the water, and the shaft seems to lengthen as he does so, responding to his intention to move the boat forward. With a push, the boat noses ahead, the breeze lifting the hair from a dozen necks, wavering around their stricken faces. The ferryman glances up again, watching the image of the lobby splashed against the sky. It is, of course, the last memory of the man with the straggly hair before he died. What was he doing in a hotel? And how did he suddenly die just as he was strolling up to a reception desk where a uniformed woman smiled at him benignly? And so, rightly or wrongly, I've moved away from the idea of a hotel waiting room for the dead, which could also be very interesting, to this kind of imagery which the ferryman borrows and projects onto the night sky. But where is this going? Well, the ferry is surely going to the land of the dead, but the story, where's that going? Perhaps there's been a mistake. One of the people on the boat aren't dead after all. Why would someone trick their way into the afterlife? To go after someone? A loved one who's passed away? What if the ferryman works it out? Lots to play with here. How about another exquisite corpse? Okay, the first word is from Alessandro Bozzo. Whimsical. Let's grab a noun. This is from Iggy_RB. I believe that's an X ID. American cowboy. A whimsical American cowboy. Just trying to picture that as I pick out an action. This is from Anonymous. Walked down an alley with. Okay. Need to know who or what this cowboy is strolling with. This is again from Iggy_RB. It is your week. Ruthless. So this person means business, even if the cowboy is whimsical. And last word is from Alessandro Bozzo again. Giraffe. Okay, one step at a time. So I'm just going to read the whole Exquisite Corpse, and there will be a way to find a story in this. Trust me. The whimsical American cowboy walked down an alley with the ruthless giraffe. Okay, so they have to be in fancy dress. How else do we manage a ruthless giraffe in an alleyway? In fact, the alleyway is the thing I see most clearly in my mind when I read this. It gives us a definite sense of place, setting the scene. Naturally, it's dark because that represents the unknown. And one way to invoke suspense and intrigue is to show us something that is unknown and then promise to reveal it. What lies ahead in the darkness? But what lies in front of us, or stands in front of us in the darkness? Why are these two bizarre-looking characters traipsing down an alleyway, side by side, in fancy dress? Okay, I think I need a tea break. I don't know about you, but I'm sure my green tea must be brewed by now. Okay, is this going to give me inspiration? Right, let's see. Well, while I'm trying to think of something, while the green tea is working its magic, I have a confession to make about this choice of fancy dress and how quickly I jumped to that idea. Because I am relieved that I don't have a real cowboy to deal with here. The truth is, I already had it in my mind as soon as I saw the word cowboy, that it must be a person in fancy dress. Not just because of the word whimsical in front of it, though that does help. Okay, this is my confession. I just don't get cowboy films. I cannot watch them. I can't connect with the stories, even though logically I understand that they must be really good stories. And it's been an extremely popular genre for like a really long time. But I think I've been thinking about this, and I think there's some cultural history wrapped up in my personal weirdness of not liking cowboy stories. Just bear with me while I go up this other alleyway of my own thinking. Because I read something somewhere about how the sense of conquering new areas of land, establishing new settlements, which is, of course, the backdrop to any cowboy film, is a formative part of modern American culture. And so it's part of American consciousness, I guess. That didn't happen in Britain. Back in the day, a while ago, my history is not that great, but I'm aware there were just a lot of tribes sort of travelling around, warring with each other. Some of us were busy slinging mud at each other until the Romans turned up. Then there was more fighting, more mudslinging. Then later, loads of other European tribes arrived as well at various stages. And we all fought and mixed and mingled for, I guess it must have been over 1,000 years. So maybe my cultural consciousness, history, is so different that I struggle to connect with this image of settling into these big open spaces, these swathes of apparently available land. But of course, this theory falls down completely when you consider that there are Brits who enjoy cowboy movies. So what am I talking about? I think what I'm saying here, what I'm trying to get to, other than just my general confession, sometimes I have the need to confess things, it makes sense to acknowledge these things about yourself as a writer when you bump into these things. There may be some places, some genres, where you just can't go. There's no point fighting this. It's better to know yourself and work with what you've got. I don't feel qualified to write about cowboys, and they do not inspire me. Unless I can find something else that's going on here. And I think fancy dress is my way out with this particular Exquisite Corpse. So confession over. We have here a whimsical American cowboy, light-hearted, dreamy. Maybe not the real thing. I want to say swaggering because of those cowboy boots. And this character is trying to wear the persona of a cowboy, however badly, next to someone in a giraffe suit. One is nervous and feels false in his cowboy boots. The other, the giraffe, is ruthless. The cowboy shivers in his jacket. Why did they agree to come here dressed like this? The darkness of the alleyway throws its shadows over their outfits. Everything about this feels like a bad idea. Maybe close by is the opening party of a new restaurant or casino. This part of town is full of people milling around, dressed up tonight. But these two are undercover. Police? Investigating a murder or drug dealing, which they suspect is based in this row of houses or businesses. Is this LA? It feels like a comedy action thriller. I have a sudden urge to put Arnie Schwarzenegger in a tutu, something like that. That would be lovely and would guarantee some laughs. But to connect with these two characters, I think I need people with less confidence, less swagger, who are out of their depth. So let's set aside the promise of Arnie in a tutu. We can always imagine that later, just for fun. For now, I think the focus must be, who are these two characters? Because think about it. There are more murder mysteries that you can shake a stick at, and there are more action thrillers than you could fit in your lounge, even if you moved out all the furniture. So what do we have to make this unique, gripping and fun? Build the characters, make them stand out, and make the reader care. They are already a strange duo. Whose idea was it to dress up like this and investigate in these ridiculous suits, pretending to be half-drunk revellers, straying from the big party, stumbling innocently into the wrong place? Maybe it was the ruthless one in the giraffe suit, whose confidence maybe needs to come down a notch or two, or at least be challenged in the course of the story to come. Unless it wins out in the end. Maybe she's wacky enough to keep hold of her trickster persona and her policy of do or die spectacularly, even if it's in an animal suit, or especially if it's in an animal suit. But I'd like to see the less confident character, the one in the cowboy suit with the little frills shivering down the sides as he walks, be challenged and uplifted in the end. More confidence, because who doesn't like an underdog? That's what might make this story an interesting one to explore. Who do you think they are? What do you discover about these characters as you try writing notes about them, should you decide to go down this particular alleyway with them? Maybe go for a daydreaming walk just to explore that. Who they are to you is going to be the basis for this story, should you choose to write it. But let's try for another Exquisite Corpse. Maybe I won't need to confess anything this time. Okay, so the first word is from Alessandro Bozzo, alluring. Okay. What or who is alluring? And next word is from Wendy, Kelpie. So we've had this before a little while ago. It's a shape-shifting spirit inhabiting lochs in Irish and Scottish folklore. I should know this off the top of my head by now. I still write notes. Okay, let's try for an action. Let's try for an action. This is from Paul Benfield. Built a tower to honour. Well, that is an interesting action. I have no idea what I'm going to do with it, but I guess that's half the fun. So the next word is from, Robin the Mail Lady, howling. Ooh, it's different. Okay, what or who was howling? Finally, this is from Paul Benfield again, chalice. Ooh, okay. This is a weird one. We have altogether the alluring Kelpie built a tower to honour the howling chalice. Why would a shape-shifting creature that belongs in a loch or a lake climb out to build a tower to honour, well, anyone, but to honour a howling chalice? Something quite fairy tale about this. Actually, when I think about it, I think the images in my mind are getting muddled between the tower and the chalice. They feel like one and the same thing. A chalice is a kind of vessel, but imagine the ruin of an ancient tower that's crumbled and become dilapidated over the centuries. It has no roof, no turrets anymore. Well, maybe the one turret remains on the side. But the rest is open to the sky, chiselled by the elements to a kind of giant craggy vessel, roughly shaped like a chalice. And when the wind blows, it howls through the broken stones. But let's look at this again, because the alluring Kelpie built a tower to honour the howling chalice. So maybe it's not chalice-shaped because it's ruined. Maybe a magical being, this Kelpie, has built a tower to honour and sort of mimic the shape of the chalice, which howls in the wind because of its shape. I'm drawing a bit of a blank here, so I'm going to focus instead on another set of ideas that have conjured up in my mind, simply around building a tower to honour something or someone, is with Carl Jung, the psychologist, who I know I do sometimes mention on this show because of my interest in the unconscious mind. And Carl Jung's life was really centred around explorations into the unconscious mind. Very much up my street, although he was a bit more serious in his approach, and to my knowledge, he didn't muck around with story games. Although, of course, it's possible that he did and never wrote about it. In Jung's later years, he built a tower to honour his psyche, his unconscious mind. I'm going to quote from Memories, Dreams, Reflections here, which is his biography. Well, autobiography, but it was written by someone else on his behalf. I had to achieve a kind of representation in stone of my innermost thoughts and of the knowledge I had acquired, or, to put it another way, I had to make a confession of faith in stone. That was the beginning of the tower, the house which I built for myself at Bollingen in Switzerland. And when he was building it, he said, it gave me a feeling as if I were being reborn in stone. And the silence and the emptiness of the place gave way to what he was never quite sure were hauntings or hallucinations of ancient gatherings of people who were talking loudly, singing and playing instruments. Eventually he looked into the history of the area, and there were regular gatherings like that in the Middle Ages, trooping across that particular piece of land. What I get from all of these mental associations I have in terms of a story idea is probably timelessness, the emptiness of a chalice, the chalice of the soul, whatever that means, which is also somehow full, not just empty, of memories, hauntings. This ties in my imagination with this howling chalice. See, if Carl Jung was a Kelpie, this would really fit in quite neatly right now. I'm not sure if this has given me a strong direction, but it's given me a feeling. Let me try. The river raged below, but the Kelpie was back at her tower, ignoring the ache in her very skin at the nearness of water, the urge to jump back into the elements where she belonged. She lifted another stone and another and pushed them into place, hearing the faint squish as they wedged against the clay mortar she'd made the week before. How long would it take to build the tower? And really, was this the only way? She could go into the nearby village as a man and get work to pay for a good witch to make the right spell. But such prolonged shape-shifting would exhaust her in less than a day. Besides, this was surely a secret, and how could she be sure that a good witch wasn't being closely watched by any number of bad witches? Night after night, the chalice had haunted her. It grew clearer in her dreams, and the more eagerly she allowed the imagery to wash over her, the more she saw. Her aunts and uncles, her sister, her parents, faces appearing around the stones in her dream, watching, smiling, and pointing at the stones as if to say, "This is where this one goes, and this one." Eventually, she saw all the kelpies who had disappeared last autumn in a flash of raging witchfire. The kelpie awoke, trembling from head to toe, and then from head to fin, and back again. What if her family weren't really dead? What if they were trapped in another realm, close to this one, and all she needed to do to release them was to build a tower that mimicked the chalice that stole them from her months ago? Okay, so as usual, when all else fails, you just need to sit down to write, and you write. And the words themselves lead you there, as if they contain little crumbs of meaning that you just have to follow and follow. Let go of doubt and just follow. But not just that. In terms of the writing process, I firmly believe that it's good to acknowledge stories, memories, or things you've read that might crop up as mental associations. As with the Cowboy Association, I was acknowledging my limits. So rather than try and write something that just makes you think, no, find another entry point, something that intrigues you, and follow those crumbs. And as with Jung's tower story, when you find an association like that, by all means, consider it. Ask yourself what it is about that story or idea that excites your imagination, and then let it go. Let the writing do the rest, for your unconscious mind will create new connections for you. And it is with that faith that we discovery writers pick up our pens, not really knowing what comes next, at least in those early brainstorming stages. So what have we had today? A person newly dead, or are they, on the ferry to the other side. A strange, rather empty image of a hotel lobby hovering over the ferryman's head. What does it mean? Where might this story go? Then a strange duo beginning an investigation down a dark alleyway, dressed in unlikely fancy dress. What's really going on here? And finally, a kelpie haunted by the image of a giant chalice in which her family disappeared months ago in flames, begins to build a tower to copy its shape, the way she found the chalice after the great fire had died out. She invokes a power through this willful copying and by answering her dreams, honouring her dreams. I'm curious to see what you might make of the Howling Chalice as the basis for a story idea. Maybe that should be the writing prompt I invite you to try. Please let me know if the Howling Chalice gives you a story idea. As usual, the best ones will get a shout out in the next show. Just go to annatizard.com and hit the contact button on any page footer. And don't forget to send me some more words for the Socks of Destiny while you're there. Right, on that note, until next time, go forth and be inspired. I hope you enjoyed today's Brainstoryum. You can find out more about Exquisite Corpse and my series, The Book of Exquisite Corpse, at annatizard.com. Subscribe to my e-newsletter and you'll get Volume 1 for free. And while you're there, why not submit a few words to the Socks of Destiny on my play page? You may inspire me or inspire yourself to write a unique new story. See you next time.